Tuesday, where I make a statement and the guys will tell us if it's an overreaction or not. So, Dominique, if I said Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the NFC, is that an overreaction?
Yeah, I think that's kind of an overreaction right now. Like, we have to give some credit to guys like Matthew Stafford and Jalen Hurts, guys who've gone deep into the playoffs. Even Jordan Love has had some real playoff success. What Jaden Daniels is doing right here in Washington, D.C. is incredible. It's a team that we thought had no shot, now has over 10 wins. So he deserves a lot of credit, and he may be, in the near future, the best quarterback in the NFC. But right now, let's just slow down for a second.
He was pretty awesome on Sunday. I mean, do you count him among the star quarterbacks in the league already, Mike T?
Absolutely, Graz. Like, to me, the definition of a star is when you can make players around you better. They had 5 turnovers and beat a first-place team. That is the definition of a star. And it's not in a year, it's not 2 years, it is right now. This is a team that has a chance to make the playoffs, and who knows, maybe make some noise after that as a rookie.
It definitely seems to be special. Jeff, staying in the NFC East, is it an overreaction to say the Cowboys should keep Mike McCarthy as their head coach next year?
It's not an overreaction. I mean, you think about Dak Prescott. He went out and said, hey, let's keep Mike. Micah Parsons came out and said the same thing. CeeDee Lamb is playing with a bum shoulder. They just beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had playoff dreams and hopes it might have gotten dashed because of the loss. This team is still doing what they got to do to win. So I think they're playing hard for McCarthy. It's unless you tell me who you're hiring, it's very difficult for me to say you're getting better at that position.
Neek, what do you think? McCarthy done in Dallas, or you think he comes back?
Nah, I mean, I think the way that this team is playing solidifies it, and we understand how difficult it is for coaches in that unique situation. Mike McCarthy's had some success, and this team is still fighting and playing well. The defense hasn't played this well all year long, and you got to think that you bring back a quarterback, address some of the holes that this team could be competitive again next season. It's not a full rebuild. It's just a reload.
Yeah, to Jeff's point, Graz, typically Jerry Jones has hired an experienced head coach, so you juxtapose Mike McCarthy with the experienced coaches that are out there. And I think when you look at that, I think that gives Mike McCarthy the benefit of the doubt. They're clearly playing hard, and once you're eliminated, that's hard to do. And as this graphic shows here, they all had previous head coaching experience in terms of the last 5 hires. That would portend to what they would do if they would move on from Mike McCarthy.
Find out here in a couple of weeks on that. Meantime, the Eagles probably gave away their chance at the number 1 seed with that loss on Sunday. So if I said, Mike, without the 1 seed, the Eagles won't make the Super Bowl, am I overreacting?
Yes, Graz, you are, and here's why. Right here, Jalen Hurts, his A game is good enough to win the Super Bowl. You go back 2 years ago when they lost to the Chiefs in overtime in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field. That showed us on film that his A game is as good as anybody. So while it's far from ideal to go on the road, especially in Detroit or Minnesota, they could certainly go on the road and still get to the get to the Super Bowl.
So they'll have to go on the road if they get to the conference championship game, most likely. But in the meantime, here's what the NFC playoff picture looks like right now. If it ended today, the Lions would get the first round bye. Now the Vikings are still in that mix, and they play each other in Week 18 and all that. But as of now, the Eagles would have to play the Washington Commanders in the first round. And we know from having watched that game on Sunday that that's a tough game for the Philadelphia Eagles. And they could very well lose it as they just did. So when we look at Sunday's game, Jeff, Eagles-Commanders, is that a bad game or a bad sign for an Eagles team that we were thinking might be the best in the league?
I'm going to say bad sign because it took them out of the 1 seed. Obviously, losing Jalen Hurts was a massive blow to their team in winning that football game. Got the 5 turnovers, still couldn't convert on them and make this, take this victory home. The 1 seed for me gave them a bye week, and everybody at this point in the season is banged up. Whether it's Barkley, whether it's Brown, whether it's Smith, you name it, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. It's a long football season. So to get that bye, to get that home field all the way through would have been massive. I agree, though, with Mike T. They can go on the road and win. I think they match up actually pretty well with the Commanders. It was an anomaly, in my opinion. But to your point, they did lose, and so it gives the Commanders hope. But I still think it's an excellent football team. They're my favorite in the NFC, in all honesty.
Neek, what do you think about the Eagles having to go on the road in the playoffs and win in Detroit or Minnesota to get to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think obviously that'll be a tough thing to do, but this team is built to do that. They run the ball well. They play incredibly good defense. And while they lost yesterday, like that, watching that game, at no point did even after the Commanders won, as much as me here in D.C. would want to pretend like the Commanders are better, like the Eagles dominated that game. And there were 5 turnovers from the Commanders. It's not something that you can rely on. And the Eagles still had a chance to win if one of their high-level, Pro Bowl-level receivers can hold on to a pass at the end of the game. So while I agree with Jeff, it's a bad sign because they lost their first-round bye, it's not a bad sign for this team. It was just a bad, kind of unfortunate, unlucky game. And if Jalen Hurts comes back and is healthy, if he survives that game, they were up 14-0. Like, I feel like they would have steamrolled Washington, and presumably he'll be healthy for the playoff game. So a bye would be easier, but I don't think that Washington is going to slow them down. And I think Detroit, with all their injuries, would have a hard time with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles.
Yeah, Hurts did leave that game with a concussion, so we'll see, obviously, this week whether he's able to go. But the Eagles still haven't clinched that division, Mike. Like, if Hurts doesn't play against the Cowboys this week, Cowboys are playing hard. Like, could Washington? No, you're not buying it.
Are you buying the New York Football Giants being the Eagles in the last game of the season?
Definitely not.
So they clinched the division.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, the point is, if Washington won the last 2 and the Eagles lost the last 2, Washington could still be NFC East champion. But Mike T is here to tell you that the Giants are not going to put up any resistance against the Eagles in Week 18.